Okay, so I should be recording now. Welcome to Mr. Posley's very first screencast. Google Drawing 10 beginner tips. Let's get started. Okay, so we go to my drive. We're going to go ahead and make a new Google Drawings. Then we're going to go ahead and label that. Always title your document. You can't save it otherwise. So Google Drawings Basics 10 tips! Exclamation! Okay. From here, we're going to create a text box over here that is going to check off everything that we're going to be doing. First thing, we are going to create a background. Why? Well, because there's cool ways to do it and there's inefficient ways to do it. The right way is to right click or alt click on a Chromebook, and find this menu here, background. Background. This is a dialog box. Background. And we can pick any color. And what's cool about this is that it's not going to move. If we try to use a shape, which we'll get into a little bit later, we could also make a shape the size of the background and use our fill color tool, paint bucket, to change that color. But every time I grab shapes, it's all over the place. So I recommend using the right click, background, and then finding a color here. Now the second thing of that is identifying and using the color swatch and using custom color. There it is. Okay, so that right click again brings us background here, and then we can choose from these color swatches. Whoa, that's bright, that already exist. Or I like that color. Or we can go into custom, and here we have literally millions of colors to choose from. So I do want a bluish color because I'm going to be doing a sky. And then I can determine the value of that blue here, from black to very, very light. And I can also dim down the transparency here as well, from fully opaque to somewhat transparent. So I'm going to say, okay, I want that to be a nice bright sky color, maybe something along these lines. Okay. And again, keeping that high here, more of a tint of this blue. Nice. Ooh, that's bright. I'm okay with it though. So that's using the color swatch. And then if I wanted a custom color, you saw me do that as well. Background, custom, and grab. Notice it has a hex code. Notice also that when you go to background, you have this new color that's been added to your custom swatches, which is pretty rad. Okay. From here, we want to be able to draw shapes. So we're going to go ahead and try to create a landscape. So I'm going to go over here to my square and circle here, the shape drop down menu. Hit shape, find shapes, and then go over to my rectangle, which is either here or here. I believe they're exactly the same. Oh, no. Flowchart process. These are going to be a little bit different. We'll get into those later. So let's go ahead and grab that rectangle and draw by clicking a rectangle down in the bottom half of the space. And now we can come up here and we can change the color of that space. I'm going to do a custom green color. It's kind of like a nice, like, forest green. I'm not loving how those are looking, so I'm going to go back to my sky, and I'm going to go with a more of a greenish. No, maybe we have more of a paler sky. Yikes. Regardless. We've got a blue sky, and green ground. And we can go ahead and add text here by clicking on the text box icon. And we want to label the specific things that we're doing here, such as the horizon line. And we can go ahead and we can change the shape color, clicking on that shape or text box, very similar, and changing the fill color to a nice yellow. But I notice here there's not a great outline, so I'm going to go back and grab a 2 point. I'm going to go to my border weight and increase the weight of that line. So I'm going to go ahead and grab maybe a 3 point line, but I don't quite like the heavy black, so I'm just going to go a mid-level gray. That's a nice soft color there. So from here I can actually add the line here, a curved or elbow connector. And what's cool about connectors is that they will actually go from point to point. So it might connect here, but that's a little excessive. So let's go ahead and just go line here, there. And let's change the weight, pop that up a bit. Make that our consistent gray. So we'll see here that line color. Drop that down a bit. And we're good to go. So we see that we have a horizon line there. And let's go ahead and add some forms. Okay. So we talked about adding cylinders. But we talked about these cylinders really needing to be below the horizon line to be able to see the top. So we can add that here. That's fine. Here. But if we add here, we have to think about how the top of that shape is perceived by the eye. And we won't be able to see the top of that shape or that form. So bringing this cylinder down here, and then copying and pasting, we can bring a cylinder up top, and we can use the rotate tool to come down, and we have sort of these mirror image cylinders. And now we start to see that there's a perspective going on here where this looks like it's floating up in the air. You're looking up at it, so you see the bottom. And this looks like it's sitting down on the ground, so we're looking down on it, so we see the top. Okay? Cool. And again, this has to be below the horizon line to really make sense. So, adding cylinders and rotating objects. Now let's go over rotating objects again. We just look for this little blue handle and we rotate that around. And you'll also note that there's a degree that comes in there. And that helps us go from 0 degrees to perfectly left would be 270. Straight up and down would be 180. And to the right would be 90 degrees. And that's important to think about as you are rotating. Cool. So now we're rotating objects. We've added cylinders. Let's look at the next big thing. Let's talk about the polyline tool. This thing is one of my favorite tools. So I'm going to highlight it. Polyline tool is super rad. This is why. If we have wanted to add a cube to this landscape, a couple cities, city blocks, etc. Yeah, I could go ahead and I could do a building here, and I could do a building here, right? But what we're lacking in this is any sort of vanishing point. And we know from class that vanishing points are super important. So let's add those. Let's go here to shape. And let's add the tiniest vanishing point here. And the tiniest vanishing point. Oops. Let's go back. Shapes. Vanishing point. Or circle. And add that right there. So what we really want to see here is these shapes actually going to those vanishing points. So let's go ahead and copy and paste. Control C, Control V. Both the line and the shape there. And let's change this into the vanishing point. Okay, cool. So we got the vanishing point and we have the horizon line. Let's add some real shapes to this. Because when we're creating here, let's go ahead and grab that nice shape here. Oops. And let's change that to a nice orange just so it can stand out. So I've sort of mirrored that shape. But what we're going to differ with right here and right now is if this cube exists on this plane, that's fine. But both of these lines should be going all the way to the vanishing point. Now, we can see, though, by drawing lines from this point, here, that, in fact, we should be seeing a lot more convergence of lines. We see that we should be seeing a lot more convergence of lines here. So let's make this shape. Let's go to shapes, and I'm going to go ahead and let's try to use one of these. This kind of looks like a similar shape. Oh, wait a second. All right. So this is a great shape to use, but it's not going to give us the type of angles that we need. And if it is, it's going to kind of take a while to make that happen. So what if we had this shape and I just want to create this shape here, this weird sort of orthogonal shape? Let's not use the shape tool. Let's go to the line tool, and I want you to select polyline. It's the only line tool here that actually has a shape here because that's what it's used for. So we'll select that and we'll click on the different intersections of this shape. Voila, we have the side of our building. That is actually receding into the distance. It is pinching together. So let's grab this one as well, okay? First, we're going to need the line tool. So I'm going to grab an arrow, and I want to bring this arrow from here, from that intersection, all the way to that vanishing point. Same exact vanishing point. And wow, look at how much I'm going to have to cut off here. Let's do that again. That's it. That's the only one we have to do because the other one is perfectly horizontal. So in the case of it being perfectly horizontal, we're going to grab the new back corner, and we're going to pull that using the shift key out in that space. So really, I have this space right here to now fill in. Go back to the polyline tool. Bam. Wakasha. Let's go here. Intersection. 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 And complete. Oh, yeah. That's starting to look good. Much, much better. So I can see that those two shapes, the computer wants just to keep it basic. It's like, parallel lines here, here, here-ish. We want to be more drastic and more specific. So now I can come back and delete all these lines. But what's important is that I group these together as a shape and I don't really move them. So I've taught you how to use the polyline tool. Now let's talk about grouping. Grouping. Also really important. I think I can take off the bolding now. So click, hold shift, hit click, right click, or in other words, control click. Check it out. Group. Da, da, da. Now I start bringing this guy around, he's going to stay together. Oh, that was crazy. That's right. If I group things, if I scale them nearer or farther, they are in fact going to stay, they're going to scale together. But I really don't want to do that, so I'm going to use my Command Z to pull it back a little bit to that original spot. Okay? Sweet. So let's go ahead and add another shape on here. Let's go ahead and add the cylinder. I want to take this out. I want to take my flying saucer. And let's go ahead and make this like a water tower. Okay? So what am I going to need? Well, let's see what tools that I have. I can use a scribble tool. I can take advantage of some of my shape tools. Maybe I use some more cylinders. Maybe I use a cube. You know, the options are up to you. Let's start with the cylinder. So if I'm thinking water tower, I'm thinking, okay, it has long sort of legs here. Now in theory, cylinder. So I should be able to sort of make this a thing. Control C, Control V. Control C, Control V. There. Alright. So this doesn't make sense though, because this here has to be higher than the other guys in order to really show that depth. Okay? So now I've got this nice water tower. Boom. All right, let's go ahead and add a road. I'm going to grab our polyline tool. I'm going to grab a road all the way down, essentially right here. Come out here. And we'll pretend the road is just about that big. Awesome. Road, hallelujah. All right. Now let's think about the windows that we might add. Let's go, or the scaling. So another thing to keep in mind is what we call arrange, order, send backward. So it's command down. Okay. Boom. There we're looking. Now, as things decrease in size, they go away from us. So we can actually copy and paste this a couple of times as we move toward that distant, as we move toward that distant horizon. And as long as we don't go over that vanishing point, we should be okay. So I'm going to bring this one just a little bit further down, and I'm happy with that. I like it. Sort of, it looks relatively legit, except for this guy. This, the heck. All right, there it is. All right. So we've got this sort of row of buildings hanging out, and I like, as an artist, trying to go overlapping with it as well. So we really have that three-dimensional space. So that is it. We have not 10, but actually 12 of the most basic beginner tips, from changing your background color. Background. Change the color. To using that color swatch. This is the color swatch. Custom colors. Noticing that those are building here in this custom area. One thing I want to point out at the very end here is number 13 is gradients. Gradients are super rad. So if I again do a control click here, background, go ahead and click gradient, and you can actually see, wow, I am using sort of this nice fade from lighter to dark, and that very much reminds me of the sky right there. So gradients right there, similar to using custom colors and swatches. Okay, 13 of them. Drawing shapes. Again, up there in your shape menu. All types of shapes. Callouts, stars, etc. We've only started to do some of the basics. We used the cylinder and the cube. Talked about text, adding text using the text box. We talked about changing the shape color. Any shape has fill color that can be changed. All right. Forms, adding forms. We come down here to shape, and we see that we have forms there, and we're able to manipulate those a little bit as well. Talked about rotating objects, finding the handle and rotating those objects to and fro. We talked about the polyline tool. That's what allowed us to create these shapes there. We talked about grouping, this idea of, let's do grouping one more time. I'm going to select those using the shift key, control click, and group. Now these items scale together. So if I wanted to make them bigger or smaller, sure enough, these things scale together. Lastly, but certainly not leastly, that's intense. Works though. We talked about grouping and adding cubes. We spent a lot of time focusing on these cubes. We're really trying to make these objects appear on the same planar surface right here. Well, friends, thank you for your sketching time. I hope you had a great time with this, and we will catch you later.